After spending hours in Withering Garden with Zhu Yuan in order to clear arguably the hardest content in the game, I wanted to make an endgame analysis to discuss her kit, talk about what works, what doesn't work, things you gotta look out for, as well as some corrections for my last video that I put out, some things that were pointed out in the comments. Her kit is really weird. If you've played her at all, you know there's a lot of different things going on in there. Before diving into the nuances of Hollow Zero, I wanted to give some more practical play advice that stuck out in my time with her. My goal is always to put the most useful information up first, so here we go. Number one being that your basic 5 will only continue straight into a basic 3 if you delay your input. Most of the time you don't want to do this because the sliding attack you get after 5 takes just as long as waiting would. Tip number 2, her EX special won't skip to 3 from neutral, so you need to input at least 1 attack before using it. Tip number 3, I ignored Mindscapes before. They will be applicable in Hollow Zero, so I'll talk about those a bit later. And tip number 4, I didn't stress enough just how bad her running attack is, and I should have stressed that it should be avoided as it delays your combo by a lot, which can make you miss out on getting to 4 and 5 and generating those shells to begin with. The biggest new thing that stuck out to me was just how punishing some of her moves are, specifically in these later difficulties where all the enemies are extremely aggressive and they're throwing out attacks all of the time. For instance, her dash attack can really throw you off if you're relying on it to dodge. An enemy's attack is coming out, but you just fired off your charged attack. You're going to get caught out a lot more often than you'd think. There are going to be moments where you see or hear an attack coming, so you start holding a direction to get the dodge off, but your charge attack chain takes a bit too long and you die, or you try using the iframes from your basic 4 in order to dodge an attack and you'll mistime it, and it is not very forgiving. I have found that inputting a side dodge after 4 sometimes gives enough iframes to pass through or to perfect dodge, but with how aggressive bosses are and just enemies are in general in Hollow Zero, I started relying much more heavily on the actual dodge button and parries. So make sure you don't forget that those buttons exist just because the rest of her kit is so mobile and it works most of the time against most normal enemies. In this hard content, it probably won't. She can feel extra punishing if you're used to playing as Billy, where Billy's rolling shot really thrives in the midst of getting attacked by multiple different enemies and being able to dodge it all. Zhu Yuan's kit is super punishing if you don't time everything right. I can't count the number of runs that ended because I got greedy, so it's really just something to be aware of when you're playing her. In Hollow Zero, I really had to adapt an almost entirely different playstyle than in Shiyu Defense and other content. That's partially because thanks to the trust system, you get the first Mindscape for free. Sorry to all the Mindscape truthers I've slandered last video, as well as all of the Resonia that you can pick up along the way. There's an abundance of ways to get X special energy. You're almost always going to be spending more time shooting your enhanced shots than normal attacking. As far as Resonia are concerned, I'm not fully convinced that going as many Ether Resonia on her was the good choice. Most other people I've seen have been running a lot of critical, stacking critical to great success, or stacking a bit of critical with a bit of their particular element. The problem is Ether Resonia really love to build up Anomaly, but you're spending a lot of your Resonia pulls to build up and get benefits from an Anomaly when you could just be diversifying your build into critical, dodge, shield, or assist, or just stacking critical. When it comes to what teammates you should bring with her into Hollow Zero, I think ideally it will look a bit different than Shiyu Defense and other content. Because of the abundance of magic shot shells you're getting, her damage window is no longer as bursty as it is in other content, and she would likely pair well with supports that give longer buff durations than Nicole does. That being said, Nicole's kit does pair extremely well with her in spite of that, thanks to the multitude of buffs she gives ether damage in particular. And if you're pulling a lot of ether Resonia, having another ether teammate to help build up Anomaly is always going to be a good thing, particularly if you're still running Zhu Yuan on a corrupted metal set. Other than that, I think any of the other supports would fit well with her. Lucy being able to quickly come out and give 15-second buffs, or Sukaku giving the 20 to 30-second buffs depending on your Mindscapes. Both of those are great options. Rena might also be good here, but I don't have her or a good enough grasp on what she does in her kit. I do know she does some damage off field and gives penetration, which would probably be very beneficial given the level differential of you and enemies in Hollow Zero, but I don't have her, no way to test her, so I have no real input on that. It's possible having multiple supports in your team would work super well. That's mostly because the issues I had with stun duration. Stun duration is abysmally low when you get to extreme intensity 11. Like, the boss will stay stunned for, it felt like less than 5 seconds. Like, by the time my chain attacks are done, I get not even a full round of shot shells off. Before her mindscapes go off and she's reloading those shot shells, the boss has already recovered from stun. Personally, I didn't think spending a whole lot of time on field with my under-geared Anby was worth it for the pitiful stun duration. The few times that I attempted a run with my under-geared Anby, I was really struggling to get past the first floor boss without taking too much damage, and I eventually traded her out for Ben. I think one of the stunners could work, but only if you built into it with Resonia and had them pretty geared. On the other hand, Ben feels like it was made specifically for Extreme Intensity 11. He's too slow for Shiyu defense, he's not enough stun to replace a normal stun unit, not quite enough burst damage to make up for getting rid of a support or a stunner in normal teams. But in Hollow Zero at Extreme Intensity, Ben really gets to shine. Tip number 7. A build for Ben is a build that's bigger. Yeah, that's right. This wasn't a Zhu Yuan showcase. This was a Ben Bigger showcase. Well, that covers pretty much everything I wanted to talk about right after finishing Hollow Zero 11. Guys, I spent hours on this, so if it takes you a long time and you're looking up tips and tricks guides, I get it, I'm there. If you learned anything helpful or, God forbid, thought this was entertaining, leave a like, leave a comment about your current progress. I've been blown away at the support so far, and this has been a really fun thing to do. But whatever you do, just know that being able to share some time with you is more than enough for me. Good luck on your pulls, don't get greedy, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace and love.
Move! there. The cunning hairs are here.
Time for some hard labor?
Huh? Is something the matter?